This video may not be of interest to the majority of my subscribers, but it sort of dovetails into a lot of other things that I wanted to talk about that are sort of intertwining in my head. And recently I've been taking a lot of photographs and just trying to advance my photographic skill. And last night I was talking to somebody and they mentioned that they were a photography major, and I asked him why he was a photography major. And basically, he gave what I consider to be some valid reasons, such as that he wanted the sort of structure and discipline that taking fixed classes with projects provides. I can relate to that because the first couple of years that I was into photography were pretty much a wash. I took a lot of pictures and I, got better at composition and stuff like that, but I did not really bother too much with the technical aspects of it, like learning aperture and shutter speed and that sort of thing, other than just maybe a little bit of playing around. When I got more serious about it, then I started to learn what these things are and then learn them to a degree where they sort of become second nature, and that's the way that it needs to be. But it got me thinking today as I was walking around. It was a warm day and I'm walking around taking photographs, and it suddenly struck me that teaching people on film with film photography it's just bad pedagogy. I mean, I could make other videos about other things that I think are bad pedagogy, such as such as philosophy. I'm writing a little series. I'll probably release it in one form or another. Confessions of a recovering philosophy major, and just my experiences as a philosophy student. And there are definitely some aspects of just bad teaching methods that I think that go along with that. But the way I look at it is film and digital are different. There's an appreciably different quality to film photography, although the gap can be diminished with a skilled photo editor. Nonetheless, the sort of medium that you capture on is largely irrelevant when compared to learning the more important aspects of it are things like learning aperture, shutter speed, ISO, how all the triangle of exposure, as they call it, interplays with one another, when to use things like exposure compensation, how to use flash. All of these different things, it doesn't really matter whether you're using film and digital, although digital offers a couple of massive advantages. Number one, you can take a lot more pictures depending on what sort of card you have and what you're shooting in. For example, if you're shooting RAW, you're going to take a lot fewer pictures than if you're not. But I don't understand the way of teaching with film, where you take maybe 26 pictures, 36 pictures on a roll, and then you have to process them and wait. And the people that I've met who have taken like Photography 101 and these other kind of classes, they're teaching these things at like a crawling pace, like waiting outside for a bus when I went to a community college that was way out in the cornfield, and I had to take a bus home one day, and there was a girl who was asking to take pictures of me and my friends, and so I was talking to her about it, and she basically was saying that, like, oh, I have to take a picture at regular exposure, then one at a stop down, one at a stop plus. It's like, really, you have to waste film with these sort of simplistic or relatively simplistic things that you can do in 30 seconds with exposure bracketing? And then you could even take those exposure bracketing and make an HDR photograph on the computer. It's sort of like with sports. Batting ranges exist for a reason. Batting cages and driving ranges exist for a reason. So you can practice one technical aspect, and digital photography gives you instant results. The advantages of film are difficult to exploit, and sometimes even difficult to perceive, and sometimes just non-existent at all. In some ways it can just be a huge pain in the ass. To really learn the fundamental skills that you need to be a good photographer, I just don't see the point of using film. And to me, And by the way, I should mention that in every school that I've seen, that I've looked into photography classes, they always want you to use film in these like 101 classes. And again, from what I've seen and talked to people who have taken them, they just drag out these things that you need to learn. It's not that you need to learn them quickly, it's that you need to learn them thoroughly. You need to be practicing that. You need to learn, say, the aperture, and then you need to master that, and then learn another aspect and master that, and then learn how to combine them, and just mastering all these different aspects to the point where they become second nature takes a lot of practice. In using film rather than digital, this slows that whole process down. And to me, I suspect that it's partly because of another thing that I want to do an entirely separate video on, this holding on to a bygone era, that, you know, analog mediums are the pure form of the art, and somehow digital is some sort of bastardization, because to me, I think that's completely bullshit, and I'll talk about this in depth in another video. When you have digital, yes, it may sort of idiot-proof certain aspects, but then it adds a whole new dimension with things like Photoshop and digital manipulation that extend the craft far beyond whatever you could do in a dark room or with, you know, analog recording of any form, whether it be in music or whatever. It's not that I entirely shun analog, but again, this is just really bad way to learn photography. And so if anyone out there was a photography major at school or an arts major, I'd really like to hear you talk about this, because what the fuck is the point, really? What is the point of learning in this way? I think that they just needlessly drag out a lot of these things. Whenever I've looked into taking a Photoshop class or photography class, like you have to take the intro as a sort of prereqs, and I'm sort of like, I am beyond all this already. This isn't really difficult stuff. I couldn't even see them dragging out all this stuff over the course of 3 months. You can learn it in 3 weeks. That's not to say you can master it in 3 weeks, but you can learn it in 3 weeks. To master it takes practice, and so going around shooting one roll of film at a time, you know, 26, 36 pictures, isn't really as beneficial as going out there and taking hundreds of pictures on a digital camera. And I had my friend who went to school for a little while for audio engineering. He had a similar experience. He took, you know, like intro classes, and he's like, I already know all of this. Why would I bother? And plus, you don't really need any of these things to, you know, for photography, for example. They want to see your work. They don't really care that you have an art degree from wherever. They want to see that, they want to see your work. And so I'm going to stop it here, because that's the only points that I have left to make that wouldn't just be going off into another video. Peace out. I never know how to end a video.